Ideas to help us understand a little bit about the Parsha. We're in Parsha Shmos. Parsha Shmos means that we are discussing, Parsha Va'eira. So in the book of Shmos, we're going to be discussing a few concepts in Va'eira. So actually, we're now entering into the time of the plagues, where the first three plagues are given forth over here. In the end. So I don't even want to discuss this the story over here. You have blood, frogs, kingdom are going to be over here, and then a little bit more is actually going to be thrown out at the Jewish people. Let's just see where it ends. Okay, so it's the first seven. First seven represent the seven lower spheros, which represent the spheres, which are the 10 emanations that we have. Thank you. 10 emanations that we have, and the way we experience Hashem. We have top three and lower seven. So the lower seven relate to these sets of the plagues, and then the higher three are next week's parsha. So what I want to discuss really just the beginning and a few aspects of it's relative to us, because before we even go into the plagues, we have to go into really the dialogue between Moshe and Hashem, what's happening over here. So first thing to note is that the way Moshe is chosen is a little bit different than in other scenarios, in that when Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, when they're commanded to do something, they go ahead and do it. But we have in last week's parsha an entire dialogue that says that Moshe is not interested. Hashem says, I've chosen you. Moshe says, no, you haven't. I'm not going. No, but I chose you. No, I don't want to go. Like, what the whole story over here is just very, very difficult to us to understand how Moshe can actually go against the word of Hashem. You didn't see that by anybody else, anyone going against the word of Hashem, but Moshe is going against the word of Hashem. You know, we'll say from a humble standpoint, from a level of humility, this is what's happening over here. But because of the way that Moshe now argues with God, quote unquote, whatever that means. I mean, obviously Hashem is going to go to that argument. So whatever that actually means, it means that the purest way things are going to come are not going to be the way it's actually going to happen in actuality. What do I mean? If we use some type of comparison, we'll see that when Hashem created Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, there was a certain way that the world was supposed to flow, was supposed to go a certain way, but then they ate from the tree and everything changes now. But the same thing is happening over here now with this redemption. It's not a direct parallel, but you see that Hashem chose Moshe. And Moshe, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. The Jewish people are going to get out of here. It's going to be miraculous events. Except Moshe says no. And Moshe says, I'm going to change that. I don't want to do it. I'm not ready for this. Therefore, what happens? Aaron is called up to bat. Aaron is called to be now the mouth of Moshe. And Moshe is going to say to them, Aaron's going to say it over. Now Paro has to listen. Right? So before, when it was Paro versus Moshe, now you're going to see tremendous wonders, and that's what the Netziv points out at the beginning of last week's Parsha. You're going to see tremendous, or actually I think it might be this week, you're going to see great wonders. And these great wonders, you're going to see the Jewish people are going to be out here, the miracles are going to blow their minds away, and it's going to be very, very quick. But because of the fact that Moshe argues and says, I don't want to do this, therefore Aaron comes into play. It's no longer Moshe one-on-one with Paro, it's not going to be two-on-one with Paro, and therefore the miracles are not going to happen the same exact way. It's going to be a little bit different. So even though the plan was a certain way, the results are actually going to be slightly different because of the fact that Moshe does not want to go. Okay, so it's just important to note that there's a picture-perfect scenario that we're looking for, which is actually not going to happen.
He's arguing from a humble standpoint. What's wrong with that? It's not he's arguing like he doesn't want to do it.
So the simple answer is, what's wrong with that? It's a state of humility, which proves even more that he's the leader out of humility. But Hashem is saying, Afal Pikein, still, if I'm telling you to go, there's a reason why you should be going and nobody else. Because when you go, even with all your humility, there's going to be a greater kavod Hashem, a greater glory of God's name is going to happen over here. And if you would accept it, then you would see that actually happen. You'd see that would actually come to fruition. But still, his humility is so overpowering, right? He's still like, as much as I want the glory of Hashem, I don't know if Moshe understands that his humility is going to degrade from the glory of Hashem. He doesn't notice that, right? But if you did X, Y, and Z, then it would follow this way. That's what we actually see that, whereas the line is, I think it's in the beginning of Va'eira. It's like the fifth pasuk over here. We see it over here. No, not here. I think it's in Shmos. Shmos, where he proves his point that the Jewish people are going to believe a certain way, doesn't actually happen. So I think that Moshe's humility is not necessarily to understand God's will, but it's to show that I'm really not deserving. You should find somebody else. When a person is truly humble, they really believe there's not somebody else. As opposed to when we don't want to do something, we say like, no, you should really choose somebody else. Me? No. Really? We're really honored and flattered as opposed to when we're denying it. Just that point. So the way the parsha ends last week is it actually quotes the first pasuk of Parak Vav, and then it's a very odd nuance, which is always what usually shows that the Christians are the ones who put the chapter headings in, because this parsha starts with the second verse almost for no reason, right? Which means really this is where the first one should have actually started. So it says like this. At the end of last week's Parsha, Moshe is bothered, right? Because now the Jews have getting extra pain, extra afflictions, all because of a Moshe and Aaron came into the house of Paro. So it says that they had to do double the amount of bricks without any of the extra straw and the like that they needed. So it says, Yeireh Hashem aleichem v'yishbot asher hivashtem esvechenu. He broken our spirits in the eyes of Paro. We made us hivashtem. We are soured. Meaning Paro no longer likes us. He's putting a sword in their hands to kill us. And Moshe returns to Hashem and he says, Hashem, Aleph Dal Nun, Lama Harios Lama Zeh, Lama Shezeh Shalachtani. Why did you do all this bad to this nation, and why did you send me? Okay, this is the question. At this point I came to Paro to speak in your name. It's been worse. And the people aren't saved. So you got to understand what Moshe is going through over here. This is the story of failure. Hashem, I am a total failure in everything over here. How could it be that you're actually letting this whole thing go through? I have that full faith in you, and now I'm looking at it as a failure. So within that level of humility, Moshe says, you didn't save them, and you just caused worse for them. Hashem responds to Moshe, Tatara, now you're going to see that which I'm going to do to Paro, because of the strong hand, I'm going to send for them. With Yad Chazakah, with the strong hand, I'm going to send them out. With Yad Chazakah, with the strong hand, I'm going to extricate them from the land of Egypt. That's how the Parsha ends. And the Parsha this week begins, that was last week. So the Parsha this week begins and says, Vaidaber Elokim El Moshe, and Elokim spoke. And Vaidaber, it means it's in a harsh term, as opposed to Vayomer. And Elokim spoke to Moshe, and he said, Ani Hashem. I am Hashem. Hashem is the name that's with the letter Yud K, Vav K, so the letter, the Yud, and the Hey, then the Vav, then the Hey, which is known as the Tetragrammaton, which is known as the name that represents compassion, ultimate compassion. It is from the verb of a being verb of Haya, which means whenever we say that name of Hashem, that we look in the Siddur, which we don't actually pronounce, the Yud followed by the Hey, followed by the Vav, followed by the Hey, when we say that word, we have to realize that Hashem is, was, and will be. So it's a being verb. Hashem is a being that transcends all of time, past, present, and future. So he says to him, Vayomer Elokim says it, this harsh terminology says over to Moshe, Ani Hashem. You have no idea who you're talking to over here. It's a stern comment that Hashem is actually giving over to Moshe, and the question is, what is he actually saying? And he says, Va'eira el Avram, I appeared to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Bekel Shakai, with the name of Shin and Dalet and Yud, which is the name you'll see on the side of the mezuzah. But the name of God, what we call Hashem, Lo Nodat Lehem, was not known to them. So this whole parsha is talking about names. It starts off with Elokim, then says Shin, and then Dalet Yud, and then it says the name of Hashem. So you have three names that we're introduced to in this parsha, and this is really the crux of what it actually means to be able to witness Hashem and this whole story that happened with the plagues and the like. We missed this whole story over here, and that is the names of Hashem. A lot of times for ourselves, we'll see it in a siddur. You say it this way, you say it that way. You understand that they're names of Hashem, what they actually mean. So that's the point that I want to look at right now. The first thing is that why is Moshe upset? Moshe's bothered by an important aspect over here. He's bothered in last week's Parsha, and he returns to Hashem. He says, why? Lama Hari Osalama said, why did you cause such evil? Why did you cause bad to this nation? You told me I'm going to take them out, and now it's been worse for them. They're going through terrible hardships. Why'd you do this to them? Why are you calling them as bad? Lama Zeh Shachleni, why'd you send me? If the whole goal was for me to take them out through you, and now it's worse, so then what was the point of this whole thing? Why are you sending me at all? I came to Paro, and he's just made it worse. You didn't even save anybody. What is Moshe's complaint that God is upset with? And that's this week's Parsha. The Parsha opens up with God just simply being upset with Moshe. What is he upset with? Go.
Doesn't have emunah.
Doesn't have emunah.
Doesn't have belief that he can do anything that he can do. Actually,
so Moshe lacking belief.
Lacking belief, but lacking understanding that Hashem is the king of the universe and runs everything. Whatever is done.
So you want him as your leader?
Control. Everything is under control.
Leader? You want him as your leader?
Hashem?
Moshe.
Oh, Moshe. But Moshe was very humble, and
but you tell me he's very humble, but yet he has a lack of emunah. Doesn't really believe that Hashem's going to do this.
And I think he doesn't really consider himself as a good leader because he's not a good speaker.
Okay, so fine. So he's not a good leader. That could be possible that he feels like he's not a good leader, but he says Lama Hariosa. What do you call it? What are you doing? What are you doing to these people?
Maybe he's upset that he wasn't in on the game plan.
Okay. It's an interesting concept, right? You hear the concept, right? Don't worry, here's the deal. I'm going to wipe these people out. And it's like, what? It didn't happen this way. It's interesting because Moshe, as a leader, that is part of his humility. It's a beautiful point they're saying. Part of his humility is like, you're not going to know about this game plan, right? If Moshe knows about the game plan, he's like, hey, Paro, listen, buddy. Let him go. This is going to be good. Give me a bowl of popcorn. You're toast, right? But because of humility, he doesn't know what's going to actually happen over here. And it puts him in this place of darkness. Right? He's now in this really tremendous state of darkness that he has to break through. He doesn't know what's going on. Right? So it is somewhat related to his emunah, and you're not letting me in on his game plan. What is God really upset about Moshe? Again, he got upset. It seems like God got upset at Moshe many times already in the beginning. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. You better go, right? It's almost like a kid not wanting to go to school. Trying to throw him out the door. Like, you going to school. I don't care what's happening. You're going to school. And you missed the bus or whatever. They had buses here for you guys? For kids? You had buses? Yeah. Mm-hmm. We don't have buses. Okay.
A short bus for me.
Huh?
No. You have to know if you want to know.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to know, but I don't know. Okay. I'm carrying on.
Was he underestimating his potential, Moshe?
It's his potential, but I just want to share with you a thought.
He did not know that what he can do actually, or what he stands for. What's his potential? He knows that he can bring them out, but he doesn't know about it. So it's like coming from what I think is, I cannot do it, to, you're really great.
Meaning it's his faith in himself?
Yeah. It's just like, he doesn't believe. He knows that he's not the regular one, but at the same time, he cannot believe that he is the one.
But it sounds like he already accepted that leadership role already. Like, I'll be happy to be the mouthpiece for you, God. Doesn't seem like that's the problem over here. I'll just share with you a thought that I heard. That the complaint against Moshe that God has is Lama Hari Osalam Hazeh. Why are you doing all this bad to this people? Moshe is supposed to have enough emunah to realize that Kol Man David the Tavav, everything that God does is for the best. So to come back with these words, say, why are you doing this, causing bad to the people, means you don't believe that there's an ultimate goodness that's going on here. You think that this is superfluous, it's unnecessary. Moshe, why do you think that's necessary? Everything has a reason, everything has a purpose. Part of the reason that the purpose is that they have double affliction. It means they're going to get out of jail. They're going to get out of Egypt quicker because of the fact that even harsher judgment upon themselves. But the first complaint that Moshe is saying is, why are you causing bad to these people? You shouldn't do that. It's bad. And Hashem says, come on, Moshe, you of all people should realize what bad and good is. You understand that there's a purpose to this whole thing. And you, Moshe, are judging the ultimate purpose here. You're looking at it as slave eyes. You're not looking at it as the leader who you are that says that obviously there's a purpose to what's going on over here. Especially that purpose to failure. If you failed, you're going to see that there's a reason why you failed. And there's a reason why I want you to realize that you failed, because I'm the only one that's doing it. So it seems that the complaint that Hashem has to Moshe, at least at this point, is that he mentioned the word Ra twice. Hera la'am hazeh, you have caused evil to these people. And the answer is to actually cause something like that as pure evil. That's a difficult thing to say, that Hashem is actually doing that. Hashem's kulo tov is ultimately good for everything. Everything he does is good. So if everything he does is good, so then how could he possibly fathom to think that you use the word Ra? Ra, it basically means absence of goodness, absence of light, of God. And now you're telling me that Hashem, you implanted this Ra, you implanted this absence of light on these people? It's not proper for you to actually say that. Okay, so that's the first thing, to be able to understand that throughout these parshas there's nuance that we have to extrapolate, and the Medrash writes many different things to explain this type of nuance we have. So we mentioned that there's a name called Elokim. Elokim is justice. And then there's another name that we mentioned, Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the name of Hashem, which represents Rachamim. And then there's another name, and that's the word Shakai, which is Shin, and then Daled, then Yud. So we don't actually say the names, they're names of Hashem. We'll just hint to those names. So now, what is this last name? So Rashi says that the name of Shin and Daled and Yud, Hiftachnim Aftachos, I have given promises, but have not yet fulfilled them. That is the name. Which means that the world, which is totally enough, everything I've created is enough. That is what the name actually means. Moshe is bothered. Moshe is bothered by what's happening to the Jewish people, and we have a take-home lesson for this. Moshe is bothered by the Jewish people, by what's happening to the Jewish people. He's in pain for them. He doesn't understand why God is causing extra burdens of pain to happen to them, and there's supposed to be some sort of salvation, and they're not listening. So, what is the story over here? So Hashem says, Moshe, my dear, do you know, to your forefathers, to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to their wives, I never introduced myself to the name of Hashem in the way that I'm introducing to you. To them, I left them in the dark almost all the time. They had no idea why anything was going to happen, yet they still had tremendous faith in me. And you, Moshe, are coming back to me, questioning me? You're questioning me why I'm doing things that I'm doing? They've never, ever questioned me. And even though the name that I told them, the name that I revealed myself to them, is totally different than the one I'm revealing to you, they never questioned me. Let's just explain what that actually means, what Rashi's saying over here. Rashi's basically telling us is that for the Avos, for Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they went through tremendous hardships without seeing any light at the end of the tunnel. There was no slavery. There was no redemption. They weren't going to be redeemed. They weren't going to receive a Torah. They weren't going to get the land of Israel. They just had to live out their lives of difficulty. But you, Moshe, and the Jewish people, I'm introducing a new name. The new name is Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name of Hashem, which represents the fulfillment of all my promises. As long as I fulfill my promises, now you're going to understand how God runs the world. That's how we actually see God in this world today. That God actually fulfills his promises. But the forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they did not have their promises fulfilled, and they still were steadfast in the service of Hashem. Okay, what that means, in a simple way, in the simplest way for us, is that we realize that there's certain things, certain promises, certain ways that God is going to give us certain things in life. And sometimes we see them, sometimes we don't. But God says, I will always give. And then there are times when we're going to be in a place where we're not going to see the fruits of our labor. We're going to put in efforts for things, and the fruits of our labor are going to happen 100, 300, 500 years later. We're not going to actually see them. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they knew that they're not going to see the fruits of their labor. They're going to daven, they're going to put in all their efforts for the things that they did, and still have faith in God, and they're not going to see the response. Don't worry, Avram, I'm going to give you the land of Israel. It's going to be amazing. Everything you have is going to be fantastic. When? Not now, sweetie. Not now. Ask me in 300 years. Maybe more. Ask me in 400 years, maybe I'll give it to you. Okay? And you won't be alive to be able to see it.
What about a child? And what about, I'll make you rich. I mean, Hashem made promises to Avram, and he.
I mean, those promises, okay? But so those promises seem to be promises that were for the individual, not for the general whole.
Okay.
Right? It seems to be that's what it's presenting over here, right? Which means that you'll have. Well, does he say promises for the child? Yes, promises for the child that he gets, right? Making into a great nation, no dice, right? Nothing there. Got some rough kids, rough grandkids, not working out so well for Avram. Right? See, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, their purpose is that they don't see it necessarily as their own individual needs. They see it as a big picture thing. Take for example, Lahavdil, as we said, to try to compare it to any other leader in society that you have today. And you tell them, I'm going to do something for you. Some big promise. Let's say you tell, I don't know, I'm going to throw it out there. You tell Elon Musk, I'll get you a job. Don't worry, I'll get you a job. And he says, I don't just want a job. I want to own half of the, space stations and car companies in the world. And you go, no, but I'll get you a good paying job. So you get him something. But he's not fulfilled with that. Why? Because that's not fulfilling for something that would be potentially fulfilling for an average one of us. It's not even on his radar to be able to get that $50,000 paying job. He needs to own half of whatever he can own, at a certain point. So for Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the way I'm understanding it is that the way they're looking at their lives is they're not looking at their lives as individuals, looking at their lives as part of a global unit to be able to create and develop. That's how every one of us we're supposed to look at our lives, not just simply on the individual level. There's something that we can actually give, that our tefillah has a particular purpose, our learning, everything that we do has that particular purpose, but it's all part of the bigger picture. And yet for them, there was no fulfillment of that bigger picture, but they were okay with that. They can just simply accept that. But you, Moshe, I've already told you I'm taking the Jewish people out of Egypt, and you're complaining. You're asking all these questions. Why you keep asking these questions? No reason for you to be asking these questions. You're not in the right place. So that's what the Orach Chaim writes. He writes a similar idea. He says that Moshe, you are kafoi betova. You are someone who does not truly have proper gratitude. Because they themselves are able to go in silence knowing that Hashem's going to give promises and I can be able to carry on with those promises. You, Moshe, not only am I giving you promises, you're about to witness, you're part of this whole redemptive process, and you're still complaining over here. You want the answers right now. And part of that take-home for us is that there are times when Hashem is speaking to us and giving us so many different things, but what we do is we focus on what's not working. So we focus on what's not working, and then we end up complaining towards Hashem that, Hashem, you're doing this, you're not listening, you're not giving me the things that I need. And we never know the reason why. It's very hard for us to know the reason why certain things are taken away from us, certain things are given to us, for whatever particular reason that is. But if we saw the bigger picture, it would make a whole lot of sense. And so that's what it seems over here, that the Avos were actually living in what we'd call the bigger picture reality. That bigger picture reality was like, I'm willing to accept whatever you give me, Hashem, even though it's not necessarily exactly how I want. I'm willing to accept it because I can accept that promise that you gave me. But Moshe right now, at least at this stage, is in this place and he says, Moshe, you don't have a right to question. You're not looking at the bigger picture. You're looking at what's happening right now. And this is the quote-unquote fault within Moshe. And that was really a testament to what the Avos really were. The forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, weren't just simply the starters of the religion. Says the Orach Chaim, he says on this line over here, Lo hisigla das lahakir b'china zu hanifla. That Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were not really zocheh. They did not really merit to be able to see what I'm going to reveal to you, and that is total revelation of God in a way that you've never seen it before. That everything's going to make total sense. And even though things didn't make sense to them, they still were able to take that with perfect faith. But you, Moshe, I've already shown you so many things that I'm going to do, whatever the miracles are, the fact that the burning bush, the other three miracles I showed you with the blood, with the tzaras, with your sticking your hand, and all these things, you've had revelations, and not only that, you've had major salvations within your life, and you're still questioning me? So that's a mistake, Moshe. You need to really latch into what the Avos are really telling us over here, the forefathers of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, to be able to understand, to be able to have a perfect level of emunah, even though you have greater clarity, they still had a higher level of emunah and trust within God at this point in time. So the first thing we're noticing over here is that the way Hashem is speaking to Moshe is to explain this concept over here, that they who don't have clarity are still holding on to promises. You who have clarity are not able to rely on those promises anymore. Why not? And this is the lesson that the Jewish people are going to struggle with now, is following within this level of the promises that they have. On this, Schwab points out the following idea, that the name of Shin and Dalet Nir, which we said is the forefathers accepting the promises of Hashem, is basically that for them it's the equivalent of someone giving you a promise, and whether you trust or don't trust that person when they give you their promise. What does that mean? So he gives an example. He gives an example of a poor person. A poor person goes over to a rich person and says, "Can I borrow $10,000? The rich person says, "No problem, I'll go to the bank." Calls him and says, "The money's in the bank." Does that poor person feel like he has the money? Yeah, he has the money, because I trust the rich person that he's going to put in the bank. But if I go over to my friend and I say, "Hey, can I borrow 10 grand?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to take care of you. I'll put it in the bank. We'll see. They put it in. I think I put it in. I just got to check my account." They don't have enough trust. I don't have enough trust that you're able to do something like that. But with a rich person who the money is no problem, he just picks up the phone, he can transfer in a second. So too, this is what the Avos understood, that they had such a trust level in God, even though he gave promises and did not fulfill them. They knew that they were actually going to be fulfilled. So I can rely just simply on the trust itself, the word of mouth that God is giving. It's for this reason that he points out, though, that when the Jewish people when Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov went into the land of Israel to do certain things in Israel, what happened when they went to the land of Israel? Avram wanted to go buy a burial plot for his wife. Was it easy? Not so easy. It wasn't easy to buy that burial plot. Yitzchak had to go redig wells over and over again. What's going on over here? Why do they keep having to fight? Yaakov was also fighting in order to get certain parts of the land of Israel. Why is this happening? The answer is they didn't fully own the land of Israel yet. It's not yet fully given over to the Jewish people yet. But the reason why they're going into land is because they have a promise from Hashem. With that promise, it's okay, I can go in. It's just the credit card. I know if somebody's paying the credit card, I have no problem swiping the card. I have no doubt the bank account's never going to be empty. I can always go in. This is one of the foundations that we see with Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Not just simply the stories that we had. It was not just simply the emunah that they were able to follow, even though they didn't have answers. Even though the things were not answering for them, they can still go forward. That is a great message for us, is that there's going to be a lot of times that we're stuck with no answers or negative answers, right? Just like the Jewish people are going to be oppressed extra, a little bit more than was before. The Avos would never ask the question. Avram didn't ask the question, "Why are you making me sacrifice my son?" It was never a question that actually entered into his mind at this point. It never entered there. Why? Because obviously if Hashem said it, there must be a reason I'm doing it. But we see that transition is having a very difficult for motion for the Jewish people. They don't understand how that works. Either if you promise me something, I want to see deliverables. I want to see it change. I want to see it happen. Hashem says, where are those that I used to have? As the Medrash says, Chaval al da'avdin, woe unto those that I lost. I had such great forefathers that no matter what, these Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they're able to just accept no matter what's going to happen. Whereas Moshe, Rabbeinu, you need to see that happen in action. Unfortunately, that's for us today. For us today, Hashem can reveal himself to us many times. We can have many miracles that happen, but one miracle doesn't go the way we want. It's like, what's the deal, God? I thought you loved me,
But Moshe and Hashem just met.
Did they just meet?
I don't know. Did they just meet at the burning bush, or did Moshe?
But the burning bush was earlier.
Hashem before.
Burning bush was earlier.
Right, but.
Well, let's say it's 50 years earlier.
50 years earlier? I mean, he went back at the age of 80. Right?
Yeah, how old is he? When did it happen?
Ask
my Midrash guys.
What, burning bush when it happened?
Yeah, when the burning bush happened?
But burning bush was happened when he was almost 80.
That's when he came to take them out of Egypt.
Right.
Yeah.
When he stood in front of Paro to take him out, let my people go there, he was 80 years old.
Yes.
So when did he see the burning bush?
It's 6 months before. Because it was 6 months. He met him. I did not read this one, but I think it was 6. It was 6 months. He went back for 6 months. He saw the burning bush and he said, "You have to go So he went to said, I want to take my wife, my kids, and go to Egypt. He went to Egypt. They spent some time there, and he left for 6 months. He was like 79. He probably was like 79. He was like close to 80. It was
okay. Similar. So you're not saying far away. So you're not asking the question, and that is how long was this relationship, quote unquote, that Moshe had with God? Right?
Right.
It's a good question, right?
Where's the trust? I mean, they just met. Okay, it's a sham.
It just met.
This is not even a 1-year honeymoon yet.
Yeah, it's not
watch.
to get married,
I'm going
right?
to turn the water to blood. Wow, that was amazing. Okay, it's not enough. It's not. Where's the ring? I need an anniversary ring. I don't have that,
All right, but he grew up in the palace where there were plenty of people who can turn water into blood.
Okay, but you're asking, the first question was better. Right?
Okay.
The first question is better.
Strike the second question. Make believe it never happened.
The first question is better. First question is this. The question is like, where's Moshe's trust? Right? So the simple answer is that the trust is coming from the fact that it's a revelation. It's not a dream. It's a face-to-face revelation that he's having with Moshe. Something that if you had that prophecy, you would be a totally different human being. Right? You think so, yeah. You don't know, right? But that's the key over here is that when Moshe is chosen over here, we don't really truly understand this relationship that God has with Moshe. How Moshe can actually argue in the ways nobody else did. But Moshe again had what we call aspaklaria me'ira, this as if he was talking to God through just a plain window pane, right? As it was clear, everything was there. There was nothing.
Not like Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov.
Not right. Those were all more dream related, right? And everybody else is basically dream related. With Moshe, it was with total clarity. So it's a good question. I think the short answer is that is that number one, he had that ultimate clarity. Number two, Hashem says, I've revealed myself to you already with the name of Hashem, which means I'm revealing myself in the name of Hashem, which means you're going to see how it's all going to make sense. So that's really that line over here. That even though Hashem is angry with Moshe, he says, I appeared myself to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in this name, but the name of Hashem it was not known to them. They couldn't comprehend that name, how things are going to work out. And now you're going to have that. Okay? Now you're going to have that. So that potentially is the answer, not in a state of anger, but at least letting Moshe know, hey, guess what? The results of all your questions are all going to come with you right now. Which is meaning it's not a full force attack on Moshe. So we learn in the next few psukim that start us off in Pasuk Vav, we learn the whole concept over here that the 4 cups of redemption. So we know at the Pesach Seder we have 4 cups. Why do we have 4 cups?
There's 4 steps of redemption.
Because 4 steps of redemption, the 4 steps of redemption are coming from these verses over here. Vot says, yes, I'm going to take you out. V'lakachti eschem li la'am. I'm sorry, v'yitzalti. I'm going to save you. V'ga'alti eschem. I'm going to redeem you. V'lakachti eschem li la'am. I'm going to make you into a nation. Okay, so v'ot says, v'yitzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti. Those are the 4. And then there's one, v'hevesi, I'm going to bring you to the land of Israel. That's the 5th cup. That's what we call the cup of Eliyahu, a cup of Elijah. That's known as the 5th cup. Is that final ultimate redemption that we have. V'hevesi al-aretz asher nasasi asidi. I'm going to bring you into that land. So what's interesting to note is, women, ladies, you know why ladies drink 4 cups of wine at the Seder?
The same reason.
Sounds like it's the same reason. It's actually rabbinic to be able to drink the four cups of the Seder. Ladies have to drink the 4 cups of Seder because it's a rabbinic reason. The men have to drink it. The Medrash tells us in 2 places why we drink 4 cups. So one says, I drink 4 cups of wine because of these verses, each stage of redemption. What does it mean, each stage of redemption? So we talk about the first level of redemption, which means Hashem says, I'm going to save you. Great, let's drink. We got out of jail. Let's drink. So we drink, right? Then he says, not only do you get out of jail, I'm going to get you a full new wardrobe. Great, let's drink. Then after that, he says, not only am I going to get you a new job. Great, let's drink. So at each time, there's a level of drinking. So actually at the Seder, when we drink, we're supposed to feel a little bit more elevated, a little more lightheaded to recognize a certain sense of freedom that actually happens through every stage that we go through, right? So that whole idea of let's drink is actually given these 4. However, there's another measure that says, you know why ladies drink 4 cups of wine? Ladies drink 4 cups of wine for something totally different. V'kos paro biyadi. The cup of Pharaoh was in my hand. Cup of Pharaoh? What's it talking about? and I squeezed the grapes. The cup of Pharaoh, anybody? Go back a few weeks. Joseph is in prison.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody there that has a dream. Who is it?
Cupbearer.
The cupbearer has a dream. And in the dream he sees the whatever is happening in the dreams, and the cup of power is in my hand, and he goes to squeeze the grapes for the cup of power in his hand. So he mentions in the dream that the cup of power is in my hand 3 times. V'kos par biyadi. And so the Medrash says, guess what? That is representing the three aspects of redemption, of why you have 4 cups of wine at the Seder, why you put there's only 3. And the 4th cup is Birkat HaMazon. The 4th cup that you drink is Birkat HaMazon. There's 2 aspects here. One is actually for men. Men have an obligation. The land of Israel was given out to men, specifically it was given over to the tribes. The women didn't actually have that tribal inheritance, except for the daughters of Slavchad. So men are related to these 4. The ladies actually have something totally different, and that is that the reason why you drink 4 cups of wine is for a different reason, and that is the cup of paro is in your hand. So now I ask you the obvious question: what does the cup of paro in this dream have anything to do with the Jewish people leaving Egypt and drinking 4 cups of wine? This is specifically for the ladies. I can look at you, but it's for the ladies. We're talking redemption.
It's an obvious question, apparently.
Question is obvious. The answer is very unobvious. Okay, so if you don't know the answer, that's good. Because to figure out an answer like this is very difficult, right? Meaning, I get it. 4 cups of wine makes total sense to me. 4 cups of wine is happening over here. Right? Because we're going to get out of Egypt. We got a promise getting in Egypt. No problem to walk. Everything's going to be good. No problem. Right? So, yet for ladies, not so. We're not giving these 4 cups. Your 4 cups are going to be based on something totally different. And not only totally different, it's got to go back like 5 weeks. We got to go back 5 weeks to Parshas, Vayeshev. The end of Vayeshev over there. Yosef is thrown in prison. And the cupbearer tells him his story and tells him about the dreams. And he tells him that the cup of power was in his hand. And that is why you drink 4 cups of wine. Anyone take a crack at this? There's no wrong answer. Good answer. There's no wrong answer, right? So that beeper, I said that. The time is up. Okay? I'll give you a thought. I'll give you a thought. Tell me if this is what you were thinking. You can just nod. Camera's on me. Right? Here's a thought. Women have something that's particularly different than men, and that's a concept called bina. Women's bina's understanding. It means a much deeper understanding as to how the world actually works, certainly how human beings work, how individuals work, and therefore they can process things a lot quicker in many cases, and they can see, they can put nuances together. The concept of bina means that they're able to notice nuance in areas where men wouldn't be able to have it. So women have a concept called bina yisera. So us men, we're sitting around going like, when is this redemption coming? It's just like, it's ridiculous already. We've been sitting here forever. Right? When is it coming? And so we hear about this prophecy. The prophecy is telling us about the 4 cups, about the 4 different levels of Gula. We say, I get it. That's what's going to happen. When does the actual redemptive process begin? It actually begins, the redemption begins before the servitude actually begins.
When Yosef gets out of jail.
When Yosef gets out of jail, that's the start of redemption, but slavery didn't happen yet. But the whole process of redemption for the Jewish people is going to start with the cupbearer telling over his tale to Yosef. It's crazy, right? When does redemption come? Before slavery actually comes. Right? It's a concept of refuah before the makkah that Hashem gives and sends the salvation, the healing before the pain actually happens. Yosef's sitting there, and this whole story about the cupbearer, we don't know what's going on. If it's the first time you're reading the Torah, it's like, wow, this is amazing, this is great, is that here? And that is going to lead Yosef to become viceroy. That's going to lead the Jewish people to become prisoners and slaves in Egypt, and that's going to actually lead towards the redemption. But that cup of paro that this man held in his hand, that is where the redemption actually begins for the Jewish people.
You guys noticed that. That's amazing.
So I think it's my suggestion over here that the women have a concept of bina, that they're able to understand and notice these things way earlier. They're able to put these things together. Obviously, there's no women in that part of the story, right? See, they're all nodding. For those on camera, they're all nodding. That's what they were thinking, but they thought it was so far-fetched, like it couldn't possibly. I don't want to suggest it out loud, but I knew that's what they were thinking anyway, right? But the concept, there's actually 47 women in this year, but the camera doesn't see it because it's facing this way. So, what we're actually noticing over here is that for the concept over here that there's two aspects of when. Of why we actually have the 4 cups of wine. One is because of the actual redemptive process, is witnessing and going through the redemptive process. And there's another aspect, and that is really going through the story of noticing when it actually changed, when it actually switched on for the Jewish people. And so says one of the Midrashim, which is basically that it started earlier on. That wine that we drink is when we even recognize all the way in the beginning of time how all these things actually happen. So it's just interesting to note this idea. There's another concept that I don't fully recall, but again, as I mentioned, since women are not inheriting the land itself, therefore they're not obligated in wine the same way, and their obligations coming from the seemingly being part of this whole miracle, witnessing the miracle that began with the cupbearer, and therefore that's why they drink 4 cups of wine, but women are also obligated to drink 4 cups of wine. That's at the Seder. Let me just say I have 1 or 2 other things I want to share.
And the thing when it was the Miriam that actually told father, saying like the Pharaoh is killing only, so it was pretty much like woman,
exactly,
not the older brother. It was the younger sister.
It's the woman that set them free through Miriam and Yocheved and the like. That's what we heard from Rabbi Nisla, that these names, the ones that actually create the redemption. But it's interesting because at this point, why is Miriam doing these things? Why is Yocheved? Why are they doing these things? Why are they saving the babies? Right? Like they don't have a Moshe to come to and saying, God's coming, He's coming. They don't have that yet. They're going to save every baby as they can. Why? They're working on the earlier promises that happened. Just like the forefathers are working on their earlier promises. They know, and they're actually preparing that. As Moshe gets on the scene, we see that this shift actually changes in this what's going to happen. But you're right. That it's coming with their pure ultimate trust that they have of whatever they need to do. I can't remember what I wanted to say over here. I guess a couple of notes about the frogs. Let's see where we go. We go with one aspect about the frogs over here. I'm going to skip. So every year, I mention the same idea just because I think it's very cool. Okay, I just need to go to the initial state of where he says about the frogs. So we're skipping blood. We're okay with that? We're skipping blood. Sorry. Go to Paratam to send out my people. If you don't, I'm going to put an entire plague of frogs here. So the nuance, what's the difference between the plague of frogs and blood? Besides the fact that one is blood, one is frogs. What if you were to look at this plague? What would stand out for you? The difference, like what's the goal of the plague of blood? What's the goal of blood? The plague. Come on, somebody talk.
So the water's not drinkable.
So the water's not drinkable, okay? Which basically means a source of life is not drinkable, 1. Number 2, if they think that the deity of the Egyptians is coming from the water, so that's gone, right? No longer has power, right? So it's not drinkable. Number 3, the fish are going to die. So if it's not drinkable, now we're losing a life source, right? So now, so that has a direct physical effect on the men, on the people, all the Egyptians. What about frogs? What's the effect of frogs?
Like they multiplied, actually.
Big nuisance.
Noise.
They're just noisy. They're just a pain. I mean, it's more than just noise, because they're everywhere. They're multiplying. They're taking over everywhere. You can't do anything without the frogs there. So it's a nuisance, right? I mean,
It's
what
part
is
of
the...
your life? I mean, completely it overtakes your life.
It overtakes your life. You imagine that song, I know a song that gets in everybody's nerves and someone just keeps singing it over and over again, right? You're getting super bothered by it, right?
Like a Russian song, yeah.
Sounds like it, yeah. I'm sure, right? But like, it's a nuisance. It's not like the story of blood is like, I get it. It's life, it's everything, it's gross. What are frogs? Frogs is annoying. She's like, if you're God and you want to like really show's boss, like, you see over here, like, first I'm taking away your life source, and the next thing is I'm going to make you go insane. I'm going to be so annoying to you. Like, you think like, this is like what fifth graders do or whatever, younger, it's like, do something real. Throw spears at people, start killing, do something. But it's like, I'm just going to make it really annoying for you. It's just an amazing concept over here. That the second plague, to get these guys out of here, it's like, you cannot think. Right? And it teaches over here that the first thing is life. Water is life. Second thing over here is that your mind is so important. And if you're just bothered and annoyed by these things, you can't actually focus. And this is such a debilitating plague for that reason, that the mind that was so powerful, and that just being annoyed and having a nuisance is something that we would like just want serenity within our lives. If you just think about the power of that plague, is that like, if someone said to you, like, I'm just going to give you peace, you'd be like, wow, amazing. That whole concept of serenity is what actually comes to this plague over here. That's the opposite of what the plague is presenting over here. It's just interesting, this concept over here, that the plague is just about, I'm going to make your life annoying. Right? If you had to define what the plague of frogs is, annoying. Right?
But the frogs, they live in the water, so now they're completely off the water, so it's already not the natural for the frogs to be so far from the water.
So I don't know which. I guess it's Svardeya, a toad or a frog, right? Toad is supposed to be a non-water creature, whereas frog is a water creature, right? So I'm not sure which one it is. Anyway, just the famous thought is that the Medrash points out, Rashi quotes this idea, is that there was really one frog because it said the word Svardeya, and then they hit it, and it spit out multiple frogs, and it kept spitting out multiple frogs, right? So if you heard it, it's worth it to hear it every year just to review it. Remember, a number of years ago I was in the Science Center over here, and the one on Foothill Boulevard, and they show that there's a frog. It says, "Got a frog in your throat," and discuss the concept of a Darwin frog. Remember this? The Darwin frog is that after the mother frog, has the tadpoles, whatever, the father frog, the male frog, swallows them all in its vocal sac. And I guess they gestate in the vocal sac till those tadpoles are ready to be released into the water. And at a certain point, it spits out these tadpoles into the water. It spits out these frogs into the water when they're ready. So the Medrash says that they would go and hit the frog and it would spit out more frogs. Right? So I think we see in the name of Chaim Kanievsky that the goal of what the Medrash is teaching us over here, it's teaching us a lesson. That when you get angry, so you hit it and it spits out more, hit it, keep spitting out more, stop hitting it. But they were so angry, just kept hitting, kept spitting out. But there's also proof that this is what happens to these frogs. That there are certain types of frogs that actually spit out other frogs from its throat. Because otherwise, that's a pretty ridiculous miracle. You hit the frog and it spits it out. But what's actually happening is that there are frogs that are actually like that actually perform this way. And spit them actually out. So it says over here, the river is going to have the Nile is going to have tzvardim, it's going to have frogs, they're going to come, and they come into your house, and the place where you sleep, and on your beds, and in the house of your slaves, and in your people, uv'tanu recha, and in your ovens, uv'mishar osecha, and all the other places you have, right? So what does it mean over here? And in your ovens. So the ovens are bizarre. Rashi points this out. Let me just get to that Rashi. It's later on. No, it's not over there. Oh, maybe I'm looking. Okay, so I don't see it here in the Medrash, but I don't see it. Okay, we'll just quote it outside. The concept is that that the frogs jumped into the ovens. What is so important in the frog jumping into the ovens? So the concept is that the Medrash says, I thought it was in Rashi, the Medrash says that these frogs gave up their lives because they were supposed to die. You're going into your oven, you're going to be burned when your ovens are on. And yet Hashem created a miracle. Those frogs that went into the oven, they are the ones that never died. And when Moshe the next day, whatever the day was, goes to the Parsha, says, when do you want me to stop these things? He says, tomorrow. So all those other frogs turn into a huge heap of mound and smelly dead frogs, except for the ones that went into the ovens. Those are the ones that actually survived. So the ones that went into the ovens to kill themselves are actually the ones that actually survived. By the way, we discussed before, frogs' legs, right? Frogs' legs, just to mention it, so we know that frogs' legs are not kosher. Now, are frogs' legs kosher for non-Jews? So technically, yes. Except non-Jews are bound by the seven Noachide laws. One of the seven Noachide laws are, you're not allowed to have Aver min hachai, a limb off of a live animal, which means, even if it's dead, but while the animal was alive, you took this off. So then, you're not allowed to actually eat from the limb off of a live animal. So there are two. I never knew that there was actually any that were ever live, because even a lobster is killed before you eat it, or before you do anything to it. But there are two scenarios that came out that I heard in the shir. One is what they know as prairie oysters. Prairie oysters, anybody? Prairie oysters, yeah, you got it. You know what it is? Prairie oysters are. You don't know what it is? What's another? Rocky Mountain oysters is the other word, terminology for it. They take out the baits and the testicles of an ox, and they go ahead and fry them, or whatever they cook them. But while the animal's alive, they take them out. So that object becomes forbidden forever. You can never actually eat from it. So the other one that I found out is actually frog's legs. In many cases, the way they make frog's legs, as gross as it sounds, is that they hold the frog in place while he's alive, and then they cut off the legs. So even though frogs would be permitted for a non-Jew to eat, frogs' legs, when they're cut off while the animal's alive, is actually forbidden. So they're not actually allowed to eat these things at all. It doesn't matter, Jew or non-Jew, they're not allowed to touch things. It's gross. Okay, but I just wanted to share that concept. Someone asks you, when do you ever have eating off the limb off a live animal? You go, I know two answers. Okay, so now I can raise my hand for that. So the Medrash says that these frogs who jumped into the ovens, they actually did not die when they went into the ovens, and not only that, when Moshe went to pray for all the frogs to die, these did not actually die. So the question is, why did these not die? Because they seemingly went and did God's will by jumping into the ovens. What do you mean God's will? They have free will? These are frogs. Do they actually have free will? So the answer is that there's some element of free will that are actually given over to the frogs. And that element of free will was that, number one, how did they do God's will? Either God told them go into the ovens. If God told them go into the ovens, they still didn't have free will. And if you tell me they have free will, so why are they going to the ovens? So Schwab answers in a simple answer, basically, in meaning it's a great answer. He says as follows. He says that God made a commandment to the frogs. Right? So we think of it as like, just go, multiply, do what you need to do. But God is actually telling them like a coach before the game, okay, folks, we have the plague of frogs are coming up. Here's what I need you to do. I need a couple of linemen. I need a couple of wide receivers. I need you guys to be going to the slaves. I need you to enter the beds. And I need some to go into the ovens. God doesn't actually say which frogs are to go into the ovens. He just makes a command that says, frogs are going to be here. I need frogs here. I need frogs here. It's like stage crew. I need everybody over here. Okay? That's what's going to happen. I need frogs going to the ovens. He doesn't tell which frogs actually to go into the ovens. So there are a group of frogs that say, aye, aye, Captain. We're going in. We're heading into the ovens. So even though they have technically no free will, but there is an element of free will given over to them because of this element of free will, and they chose to be the ones to go into the ovens. For this reason, they're actually saved. So, which means that, how do you take a take-home with that? It's just very hard to understand how this free will model works. It's not so easy for us to understand this because I actually see with angels, about 8 weeks ago we had a parsha that discussed where the angels themselves also have some element of free will. They're not entirely bound by that, by totally doing God's will. For us, the free will is much more tangible for us. That's why it's very different. But we actually learn from these frogs about the certain element of devotion that a person has to be able to have to give over their life, knowing that this is what's going to actually create a Kiddush Hashem. This is the concept of that you have to love Hashem your God with all of your heart, with all your soul, which means you have to be willing to be able to give up your life. So for most of us, that concept simply means that when I pray, I should just feel like if someone were to come to me, today I'm willing to give up my life. Not that I'm actually going to give it up. That's on a higher level for a person to get to that level. But at least to be able to feel that if that were to happen, I'm willing to be actually able to do it. That's why there's a certain element of kavanah, of intent a person should have in the Shemona Esrei, to realize that if anything were to, God forbid, ever happen like this, whether it's all my money, whether it's whatever, anything else, I'd be able to do that. But we're learning lessons, and that's part of the parshas that we're going to see. It's not just simply what's happening to the Egyptians, it's how are we Jews going to learn lessons when something bad happens to somebody else. There's always going to be a dual message that's coming here. One is going to be for the Egyptians, the other one is going to be for the Jewish people, and therefore we're learning one of these lessons over here from the frogs, that there is an element of, if you're not chosen, but yet you choose to be that one, then that is already a tremendous thing. Which means if God has now chosen certain people to do X, Y, and Z, but didn't define that it's you, or you, and you choose to be that one, then therefore salvation is coming through your hands, you're doing God's will, and potentially, like the Medrash says over here, these frogs are actually saved. This is where we're stopping for this evening.